Hello, I'm Lisa,
I'm Cryss.
and welcome to AKS Knits and Crochets number 46.
I feel like one curl is like
Yeah, there's always
misbehaving,
one.
and I can't figure out which one it is. Because it looked like a bug was sitting on top of you.
Okay, and there goes our opening.
Yeah.
Okay, so the people that click off of us within 30 seconds, it gets better. Just hang in there, okay? Anyway, I just want to say thank you all for joining us
I tried
once
to do it
again.
before we started recording, but you pressed the button too fast.
I did. I did. I do want to give an update on our giveaway, our last giveaway. I packed up the box. It's going in the mail tomorrow. This is what you're expecting to get. All the goodies are in there. I was sick all last week, so I really didn't do anything. I packed the box, then crashed. But it will be going out tomorrow, so look forward to it. Alicia B. So, Crystal, would you like to go first, or shall I? All righty. I had a bit of a ripping adventure with my top this morning. Crystal, before we started filming, Crystal was like, "Oh, she saw a mistake in her thing, and she was like, oh, it was too late. I knew it was too late when I was working on it." And I think that's exactly what happened to me. So I am working on the Nemphila tea, and look at the progress. Look at the progress. And you know what it is? I have 3 more repeats of the pattern to do before I can start working the neckline and shaping the shoulders, meaning I'm almost to the finish line on the back of this top. So I just kind of like pushed myself one night to keep going because in my mind, I really wasn't admitting it to myself, but in my mind, I wanted to get through that last repeat. But it was really too late
Was
for
it
all
the
of
night
that.
I was telling you it's too late and you should stop knitting?
No, it wasn't that night.
Okay, because
It was another night.
when it was too late and you should have stopped knitting.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So I got to the row where you have to shift all the markers 2 stitches. And something happened. I don't know what exactly happened, but I didn't shift the markers right. So on one side of the marker, I had too many stitches, and on the other side of the marker, I had too few stitches. And I thought, okay, that's easily resolved, right? That sounds like it's going to be easily resolved. So I shifted the stitches around. That didn't help. I was like, okay, what I've been doing is when I've come up to
But
a
how do you
section.
shift your markers if you knit it through them? You just unknit that row? Or?
No. You see, it's only on the cord, not on the work. So as I get to each marker, I can move it.
But you had to do another row to move them.
No, as I get to it, because in the row where you have to shift them, as I get to it, I need to borrow a stitch from this side of the marker. So I take the marker out, move the stitch, put the marker back. Anyway, I didn't do that correctly at some point. So what I had been doing was when I come up to a little error, let's say I'm supposed to have 12 stitches between each marker. When I don't have 12 stitches, I know something has gone wrong. So what I've been doing and being pretty successful with is just dropping down a row between the 2 markers and seeing that I didn't pick up a yarn over, or, something happened. That didn't work. So I said, okay, maybe it happened the next row down. So I went down 1 more row between the 2 markers. It wasn't there either. I didn't know what I did wrong. So I ended up ripping back 3 rows and then resetting all of the markers so I have the exact right number of stitches between every marker. Ask me how long that took, Cryss.
How long did that take?
About 2 hours. About 2 hours, because I have to make sure that these rows are still stacking up the way they do, because the pattern will be completely off if I missed even 1 stitch. So don't feel bad when you got to rip out. Because I was thinking, well, okay, what I'll have to do is rip back to the lifeline, but I'm going to try and see if I did it right. And if it's not lining up, I will just rip it back to the lifeline and go from there, because I'll know it'll be correct at that point. But that's what went wrong this week with Nemphila. Otherwise, I made good progress. I have, like I said, one more repeat to do before I do the this last little bit of shaping the neckline and shaping the shoulder. And then I'll be binding off. So this is about 19.5 inches long now, and I'm going to be working it till it's 21.5 inches long. So that's the report on Nemphila. Isn't she cute? I love her. What you got for us this week, Cryss?
I'm working on the shawl, and she's been a pain in the butt. This yarn it's a lot. It's very dark, and it's variegated, and it's just I had the hardest time trying to find a stitch pattern that I thought looked good in this yarn, because a lot of stitch patterns don't.
Mm-hmm.
I swatched and 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 I swatched. And finally, I just gave up. And I was just like, okay, I don't like the stitch pattern I'm using, but I'm going to use it anyway because I want to get this shawl started. So this is just alternating rows of single and double. And then I threw in some bobbles that you can barely see because bobbles don't show up well in this yarn either. And then I was playing around with switching off to the mohair, and I switched the colors of the mohair that I'm using because I think it's going to take more mohair than I realized, and I didn't have enough of the pink. So this was the next best thing out of what I already had because I didn't want to buy any mohair. I didn't want to buy any yarn. But the further I got, the more unhappy I became because I was just like, I don't like this stitch pattern in this yarn. I just don't. So I started going through pattern books instead of stitch dictionaries. I have a bunch of books, patterns for Afghans, even though I don't make Afghans, but I knew I could borrow those stitch patterns. And some of them are really nice. It was my first time really going through all of my Afghan books because I got them from used book sales. Mm-hmm. I tried a couple of those, and then I was like, looky here. Shannon Millett-Bowlesby as a designer never fails me. So I got out all my Shannon Millett-Bowlesby pattern books. And I started looking at the stitch patterns used in those designs. And that's where I found a stitch pattern that I think works a lot better. It's very simple, but I just like how the colors show up better. And I like that it's giving me a little bit of texture. I'm playing around with doing just some V-stitch sections.
Do you mind if I hold up the other one too?
Get them together.
I'll hold it below so people can compare the two stitch patterns.
Yeah, this looks way better.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Does when you see it together, right?
I thought it was just my imagination.
Nope.
But it's a very short color repeat, and I think the way the color repeat is showing up just works much better in the stitch pattern. And then I'm thinking about just breaking it up a little bit by doing some V-stitches. I made a little mistake here, so I have just one single crochet in there instead of a V-stitch.
Because it was late.
It was very late. It was late. I was tired. I had taken Benadryl for my allergies. I was a little bit hungry and trying to watch an anime.
Serious?
Oh.
Okay.
So I had a lot going on. But yeah, so now I have something that I'm much, much happier with. And I had to do my math. Let me tell y'all what I did. Don't do this. Cautionary tale. So the first one I showed you, I had a certain number of stitches. I think it was like 70 stitches. And the first row is single crochet. So when I switch stitch patterns, that first row is going to be half doubles. And I thought, well, half doubles are wider than single crochets, so I can use the same number and it'll come out a little bit bigger. But, not by much. And it didn't. It actually came out smaller.
Oh.
And so I had to rip out what I had and start over. And it is because I'm using a stitch pattern that contracts.
Oh.
And I didn't realize by how much. So I ended up having to rip out what I had started and starting over with more stitches. So this version has I think 90 stitches.
Now, is this just your swatch or is this
No, this is the beginning of the shawl, but so it's gonna be worn this way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's probably gonna have some sort of border at least the top, maybe the top and the bottom. But yeah, so don't assume. Don't assume like, oh, I'm changing stitches, so I don't need to do a new swatch. Because I'd swatch so much, right? I was like really just feeling like over swatching. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna start it. Don't do that. Don't do that. Not if you want it to be a certain dimension. Now, I mean, it's a shawl. It could have been shorter. It wouldn't have been a big deal, but I wanted it a certain size. So and it was short by a lot. It was like a 3.5 inches short.
Oh no.
And I'm thinking I might have also used different hook sizes. So yeah, I made a mess. I was very tired, did I mention? It's very late.
I heard rumors.
And I made some bad decisions, is all it was. But now we're underway. I've got a stitch pattern that I like. It's the size that I want it to be. I've chosen the color of the mohair that I want. Shawls have bedeviled me for quite some time. I've wanted to design one, but I feel like there are so many decisions to make with shawls that I just got completely overwhelmed. And so this is my first like original shawl. But now she's underway. Whew. So I'm feeling a lot better.
Do you know the name of the stitch pattern for anyone who's interested?
No.
Okay, never mind. And what book did you settle on?
I found it. It was in Urban Edge by Shannon Mullet Bowlesby. And I forget the name of the top. It'll be in the...
It will be. It'll be in the
but it's one of the tops in there. It's like a sleeveless top with a cowl neck. Yeah, so if you have that book, you'll know when you see it. In the book, it's pink. Yeah. But she's underway now.
I like how she's looking.
After several false starts.
Yeah, because you showed me one swatch with the bobbles done in the mohair. I thought that was really cool.
But you know what? It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I imagine it would be.
And I would have to keep cutting mohair, and we're not going to do that.
Okay.
So I tried all the iterations. It was just so weird. I don't know. I guess maybe that's the process, and there's still part of me that doesn't understand that the process is trying something and not liking it and having to try again. And I get to this place where I'm like, oh, it's got to be me. Like something's wrong with me, with my decision making, that I can't settle on anything.
Nope.
But I mean, I really feel like the stitch pattern shows just looks way better than what I was doing before. And I was going to settle for that just to get moving. But, you know, to put in that much work and not be happy with it in the end, I didn't want to risk that. So I kept looking, and I'm glad I did.
I'm glad you did this. We did the side-by-side comparison because you look like you had a eureka moment when you saw it together.
About how the color is playing out. I don't know. I'm using shorter stitches here, single crochets and chains versus double crochets. I don't know what role that's playing. This stitch pattern has a little bit of texture to it. I don't know, but it's working out much better.
I agree.
Weirdly.
I agree. I think it looks really good.
So that's what I'm working on.
All righty. Any idea what it's going to be called yet?
Not this early in the process. I never know. This early, like on day one, oh my gosh, no.
My bad.
It always takes a minute. Because the name usually has something to do with the process of making it.
And you're not even through the process yet. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as I revealed last week, I'm also working on a small crochet project. It's a very small project. I started this twice last week, and you know what? I'm going to have to have you and Mom look at this for me.
You need to work a few decreases.
Am I increasing?
I don't know if you're increasing or
because it feels like it's getting frillier.
Yeah, so you might be.
I might be increasing. Okay. Well, this is my little purse.
You know what? You're working in the round. It's very easy to do that.
Yeah, because I see the frilling starting, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to rip some of this out. You know what? I didn't bother to count my stitches. I didn't because I figured I was working in the round.
And no matter how long you've been stitching, you always think you're gonna get away with some mess that no one else gets away with.
I know, right? Nobody in the world.
Think you're gonna be the one. You're not.
So I'm gonna rip back this a little bit, but the idea is my top has a little detail on it that's a drop stitch with several stitches in between and another drop stitch. So I'm kind of mimicking that here by chaining 2, skipping 4 or 5 stitches, and then chaining 2 again, and then just going on about my business and skipping 2 stitches. So I'm doing it here in the center of the front panel, in the center of the side, in the center of the back, and the center of the other side, just like on the top. So I thought that would be a cute little match in crochet for what I'm up to. But as you see, it's getting rather ruffly. So I am increasing somewhere along the line.
Yeah, that can happen very easily with working in the round. You might want to mark the last stitch of the row.
Yeah, I thought I was getting right to it, but no, clearly I'm not. So I will be putting in a stitch marker. Are you
turning your rounds?
No, I'm just crocheting up in a spiral.
Yeah, I don't do that because I always add stitches when I do that.
Oh, okay.
Try turning your rounds.
So I need to turn back and go the other way. Okay. I'll be doing that because
I'm just now starting to figure out how to work in around without adding or losing stitches.
Yeah, because and I think that's why I stopped working on this, because I saw what was happening and I wasn't admitting to myself what was occurring. But, crocheters, you guys know, when your ruffles have ridges like this, you're increasing. And I'm going to count the number of stitches from the first row so that I know how many stitches I started with, and I can just, keep track. Because I thought, I can do this. I'm just go. No, you can't just go. What did you say, that no one else in the world gets away with it? Yeah, I thought I would.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm at on my purse. And I think when it's done, it will look super cute with my bag. I'm very happy. And I think what I will do is skip yet another stitch so that this remains more open. But I was also designing it on the hook. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have to rip out and do a little bit of ripping. And that's just how it goes if you're designing on the needle or on the hook. Because I didn't even do a sketch of this. I was like, I just want to kind of mimic what happened in the top. And speaking of my top, I realized I never showed you guys a picture of it on. So here it is. I still haven't blocked it. That's why I'm not wearing it today. It's not blocked on me in the picture either. So Crystal made a picture spot upstairs, and I don't think I used it properly.
You're standing too close to the mirror so that you're not supposed to see the staircase. And you have your arm across you, so you can't even see the top.
I was trying to hold the camera steady.
Sweetie.
Yeah, I had a lot of issues.
We'll do a little lesson.
Yeah. She's going to have to show me how to take pictures of myself because I don't know how to do that. But
you want to stand further back and zoom.
Okay, so I'm going to zoom up right now so you guys can kind of see. And I was trying to hide that it wasn't exactly blocked because it's not blocked at all. But like I said, I wasn't feeling very well and I didn't do like this type of finishing work. But I'm feeling much better now and I will get on that. But that's kind of what it's going to look like. But I can't wait till I have my bag. I'm super, super looking forward to that. But that's pretty much all I'm working on right now. And I think that's kind of enough considering the disasters I have created. A 2-hour rip job was not fun.
Oh, that's the other thing.
Oh.
Ripping out this yarn. It doesn't say what kind of wool it is. It just says wool and acrylic. But it's hairy like sticky. The Yeti.
Oh.
And ripping out is a nightmare. And it's fuzzy. And as you rip, it gets fuzzier and fuzzier. So you have literally little clumps of fuzz just hanging out on the string now.
Oh.
So each time I ripped out, it literally got harder
Oh.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, were you ripping out the swatch and then using that same yarn to go immediately to the next swatch?
Mhm.
Here's what I would suggest. Once you saw the yarn was behaving like that, just use new yarn and
I
swatch
only
again.
have 2 skeins. And
Right.
you
But
cut the yarn?
I would, yes. And I
No.
would reclaim the yarn from the swatch as I needed it.
Mm-mm. I
Rather
don't.
than,
No, I don't cut my yarn if I
because
don't have to. Because I
that
don't.
that kind of yarn is going to get stickier every time you rip it
Yes,
out.
this I know. That has very much been my experience.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I would only rip it and redo it once.
No, I did not do that.
Yeah. Just
And when
going
one
forward.
skein was messing with me too much, I just switched to the other skein, and that one started to get messed up too. But now I'm in a place where it's good, it's fine, but no. I ripped that same yarn over and over
Yeah,
and
no,
over and over.
you can't do it with yarn like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just anyway, it's too late for Cryss. But let me help those of you out there. Save yourself. Exactly. If your yarn is hairy like that,
Too late for me, damn it.
it's too late for you. If your yarn is hairy like that, just put that piece to the side that you've already worked. Start with new yarn. And if you do need that yarn, just go back and get it then. But I would not rip it out, crochet it, or knit it, rip it out again. It's going to get hairier and it's going to cling to itself even more every single. I didn't know all that was going on. Oh my God. Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know that was happening. Oh.
Because we found 7-8 swatches deep, yo. Yeah. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Okay. Okay.
Okay. You know what? Let's talk about pleasant things. What are you wearing today?
Oh, this is a knockoff tee. I feel like they've seen it before.
Yeah, but everybody doesn't watch every episode, and we have new people watching every time. So
this
let it go.
This is a knockoff tee. We had a knitted top in the store, and I looked at it and I was like, I think I can do that. So I just stitched up my own version. This is Cotton Fair from Premier, which is a cotton acrylic blend. Because I just snatched something out my stash. But when I take inspiration from a garment, I don't try to like exactly duplicate it, but I mimic the features that I like. So it was just a boxy tee. It had kind of like a fan stitch thing happening, but then like a solid at the top. So I did that. I made mine high-low, so it's shorter in the front than in the back. And it's very simple because it's just a square. I didn't do any shaping because it's like teeny tiny little bit at the neckline. Yeah, it was very simple. I made up this fan stitch pattern and I wrote nothing down.
Okay.
But I can read my stitches. I think I could duplicate this if I needed to, but I just, yeah.
And there you go.
There's 3 skeins to the wind, man.
And this is my over easy top. Interestingly enough, it's made with Cumulus again. I really like Cumulus. And I held it triple so I did 2 skeins of Cumulus and 1 very fine skein of a shimmer yarn that we had. Ella Ray
something or other.
Sparkle. I forget what it was called.
It wasn't
And this top, I made it because I was going to be on a Vogue knitting thing, and I didn't have anything handmade to wear, and I knew everybody else would, so I had to.
You have to make something for that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what she said, and in that tone too. You have to make something for that. So I was like, okay, I need to make this in 7 days. What can I find that I can make in 7? Count them 7 days. And I went for the bulkiest yarn I could.
Held it
double.
Used giant needles.
Oh, laws, yes. I think like size 13 needles.
Finished it in 7 days.
Oh, yeah. Able to wear it. Yep. Absolutely. So that's what we're wearing today. Oh. So we were talking just before we started filming about you know, what the design process kind of is. And you were alluding to it a little bit, that it's iterative, essentially.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
If you want to say it
That's a nice way to put it.
in fancy talk, it's iterative. It's like when you're working from a pattern,
Sisyphean is one like it, but okay.
things can go wrong, but a lot of the pre-work has already been done. Now, I swatch, Crystal considers my swatching a lot, but
for someone who's not designing, who's not making a decision based, of what stitch pattern you're going to use, yeah, it does seem like a lot.
But I'm often not working in the type of yarn that they tell me to work in. So I create more work for myself. If I was doing a fingering weight top and fingering weight yarn, I would need to swatch less.
You should try that sometime. I don't know.
There's a thought. But I feel free now to make it my own, and I feel like I'm in a partnership with the designer, and he or she and I are creating something together based on the thing that they made, because I too am not necessarily making a replica of the thing I saw. I'm making something very similar. Maybe I really like the shape.
Even if you're working from a pattern, though, I feel like the pattern,
I know, right?
Kind of leads to.
I know it should, but even this was made in a very, very super insanely chunky wool, and it wasn't wool time when I was making it, but I like the shape. And I like the simplicity. I felt like it was something I could get done in 7 days. It had a lot of features I needed, But that's also the case when you're just creating something from scratch. You don't know what the yarn's going to do. So, variegated yarn is tough to work with in terms of showing pattern and showing structure. So you really did have to do how many swatches again?
So many. It was somewhere around 6 to 8 swatches, and all in different stitch patterns.
And as you can see, you're working at a pretty good size. Were all your swatches about that size, or were they small?
They vary.
Yeah, I guess if you realize right away, oh no, I don't like this.
They vary.
So, you know what? Do me a favor going forward. Can you take a picture of each swatch before you reclaim the yarn?
I think I'm going to try to do, but I don't understand. It'd be kind of like a feverish type of thing happening. I don't always be thinking straight. So, yeah, I'll try to remember to do that. But
thank you. I appreciate it.
No promises, because the stitches got to do what the stitches got to do. But I was saying that I'm surprised. I'm having trouble finding people online who are designing for themselves. I don't know, if they're out there. And I just feel like the demands of designing for customers is very different. And that will govern your yarn choices and, your time frame for making something, because you also have like a promotion cycle to think about, and you're thinking about how long the testers will have it. So maybe you'll make something a little bit less complicated than you would if you were just making for yourself. And I'm just wondering if there's this community out there that I'm not able to find, who are people who are designing for, an audience of one. And every once in a while, I feel like I come across someone who made something without a pattern, but not often. And I feel like there are new, especially knitting YouTube channels coming out. Like every day I'm seeing, channels that seemingly been started like just in the last few months,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't seen as many new crochet channels. And the crochet world is very fragmented because there are people who only make garments, there are people who only make household items, there are people who only make amigurumi. So finding like the garment people first, and then finding people, just because I'm interested in finding people who are making some of the same decisions I'm having to make, or
Mm-hmm.
encountering those same problems. The people who are selling their patterns usually don't want to talk about that process as much, because they just they'll start talking up. What I saw when I was still on Instagram is they'll start talking up a new pattern that's coming out, and they're really excited about it, and oh, they loved working with this yarn or what have you, and it's all very happy, cheery, peppy talk. And then the pattern comes out, and you never saw any of the process, any of the behind the scenes, any of the versions that failed, or you never learned why they made the choices they made.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you're designing for yourself, you're much freer to talk about those things because you're not talking to customers. You're not showing customers, the behind the scenes
inside
stuff.
baseball. Yeah.
Right. So I'm wondering, where they at, yo? Like, I guess I'm surprised that today so much of stitching world seems so very pattern dependent, because I feel like back in the day when it was actually used to make clothing, maybe that wasn't necessarily the case. There were more people.
There have been patterns a long time.
There have been, but
I think that because of the way knitting and crochet are transmitted, you might have learned how to make a garment and then made a lot of iterations on that basic body plan. That's why we see, certain styles of garment come out of specific areas, because that was the basic body plan that a lot of people were riffing off of.
right, but more people were ripping.
Yeah, they had to.
And now it seems like they're like demanding patterns. Like, oh, I need to be told, what to make and how to make it. And I'm trying to get a sense of what percentage of the stitching community is only using patterns versus only designing on their own, or something in between, because I feel like the people who are visible on social media don't necessarily reflect the numbers of stitchers at large who might be doing various things. Is social media can definitely create a skew in terms of perspective. So I guess I'm just wondering if there are how many people there are out there who are designing garments
For
on
themselves.
their own. Yeah, for themselves and not for the sale of a pattern. Because I feel like a lot of people, once they become visible on social media, so you start your channel or what have you, or your Instagram, and as you become more popular, there's like a pressure really to sell patterns. And so people just kind of like fall into that. But I mean, I mean, honestly, people have asked me to write patterns, and it's just not what I want to do. Like, I have to be completely honest. Like, I don't see myself writing patterns at all. It sounds miserable. But so yeah, there is pressure. When you're in a store I go to, every time I go there, the owner's like, "So you gonna write a pattern for that?" But are people designing for themselves? I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's the real question.
Are people designing clothing for themselves, in knitters or crocheters? Because like when I even like looking now at some of these Reddit forums, it's still a lot of patterns. Well, it seems like on like the knitting forums, people are doing like kind of the same basic sweaters and some socks. And on crochet, it could be anything. It's the Wild West. And like some of the things from the amigurumi is actually really cute, but just that's not what I would spend my time doing. And blankets. People make very, very large blankets and motif blanket. Y'all ain't scared of no motifs, man. Y'all will make 1,000 hexagons and stitch them all together. I'm like, that's some dedication.
Yeah.
Okay, I did see this one cute blanket though. It was baby turtles. Like, so the blanket was like in 3 sections. So one was the sand, and then one was the actual turtles really crawling across, and then the other side was the water. So it was showing like the baby turtles making their way. It was cute as all hell.
It sounds adorable.
I would never make that, and if I did make it, no one would ever be allowed to touch it. But
you mean we couldn't like cuddle with it
because the turtles were 3D amigurumi turtles.
Wow,
they weren't like just the picture of a turtle. And no, they were like they had mass and they were crawling across. It was very cute.
Wow,
it was very, very stinking cute. I don't know if that was from a pattern or someone just made that up. I was impressed, I have to say.
Now, I happen to be on a couple of crochet boards on Facebook. And what I do notice, though, is that crocheters design their own garments a lot more than knitters do. I mean, way more. And some of the folks that are doing their own garments are producing really exquisite garments, but they're very personalized, very idiosyncratic to that person's style. There's this one lady, she makes what I call the wild sweater. I mean, it can have any theme to it, and she comes up with all kinds of interpretations for her theme. But I rarely see knitters doing that. Knitters are way more pattern focused than crocheters are.
I guess I want to know if like it's funny because I was always like stick with the pattern, and my mom was always like pattern free, and we've kind of switched now because she's kind of doing what I did, which is using patterns to learn new techniques. And now that I have a few more techniques under my belt, I'm working on designing my own things. And I'm just wondering if the pattern people are interested in learning how to make things without a pattern, or if people just like sticking with the patterns.
Well, I think some are, some aren't, because like you said, a lot of people are not willing to do one swatch, let alone 8, or the 3 or 4 I do. And you and I are doing 8 to 9 inch swatches. It's not the 4-inch square. So it really depends on what you want to do, how many decisions you want to make, what skill level are you at. I think that it's a thing that you either develop into or you're not interested in. You don't want to do that much work because it is more work.
Yeah,
it's more work.
It definitely is.
It's like, I always wonder, when you make one of your sweaters, right? Do you like write down all the details? Let's say you wanted to make one in another color, or would you have to discover that again?
I'm getting better about writing down details. Like when I made the Talk sweater, I had to figure out how to decrease in that stitch pattern to do my neckline. And I did try to write down what I did, because it turns out you could only decrease at one end of the row. I forget if it was at the beginning or the end, but I was trying it at the wrong end first, and I was like, you can't decrease in the stitch pattern. And I figured out that I need to decrease on the other end. But I wrote it down really late at night in really bad handwriting because I was very tired. So I have to actually look at that and see if I can actually figure out what I wrote down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to remember now to write these things down. Or if I get a stitch pattern from a stitch dictionary, I try to write down what the book was and what page number it was, so that I can always refer back to that. If I look at the sweater and like, oh, I really like this stitch pattern. Yeah, I'm getting better.
Because I want to suggest to you that you start keeping a creative journal so that you have all that stuff in one place.
I have like what I call my design journal, which is where I usually have my sketch, and where I have the measurements of my swatch, so that I can then decide, how many stitches I'll need to do. But I'm trying to work out a way to do like a like a lookbook kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
where I just write down the details of everything after it's been finished.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
At least make some notes on your phone because you usually have it around you
I
that you can transfer into the book as
but
an
like you
ongoing
know what,
record.
I would actually have to go back and look at what I've written down about a previous pattern and see if I wrote down enough to make that thing again.
Yeah.
Because I haven't tried that. I usually only make a thing once.
Right.
And it's always like, in theory, I could make this again, but I never do. I move on to other things. Um, so, yeah, I would have to test my notes and see how useful they are for actually following them to make the same thing again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even necessarily that you would want to make the exact same thing again, but like that pattern. Let's say you decide, you know what, I want to use that pattern again, but this time you already know how to do the shaping because you would have your notes about that.
I had to figure that
Yeah, and that wasn't pretty.
out in a couple hours.
I can tell you it wasn't.
Because I just like, I ran in, I didn't think of it ahead of time was the thing. So when I realized, oh, I have to figure out how to decrease, it was a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to stop working, had to stop my progress and figure this thing out. It's a little frustrating.
Mm-hmm. So that's part of why I want to encourage you to keep more detailed notes too, because
I have okay notes.
Because you're not necessarily gonna make the same thing, but you might be able want to lift elements from one thing to the next.
I write down the big stuff, broad strokes.
Because I'm in that process now because I change patterns so much. I have to keep detailed notes because let's say I put something down for a while and I come back to it. I may not remember what needle size I used, and I might have needed that needle in the meantime and just ripped it out because,
That's a thing I do forget to write down, my hook size.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get better about that because, sometimes I will want to swatch something else and I steal the hook.
I sure do.
And so, like, right now, I have to look in my notes. I still haven't finished the Impossible Dress, but I want to. I have very little left to do on it. And it occurs to me that I don't know off the top of my head what hook size I use, and I'm really hoping I wrote it down.
Keep my fingers crossed for you.
I know it's somewhere in the 3 range.
I don't know.
3.0, 3.2.5, 3.5. I don't know. I really hope I wrote it down.
And because I don't have the safety net of using the actual yarn, the yarn weight all the time, my needle size is super important. And if I don't know what it is, there'll be a lot of trial and error I'll have to go through to figure it out. Yeah.
Now, that's just the thing you want to keep in mind when you're designing. Note taking. You really want to figure out a system for note taking early in the process.
Yeah.
Like have a notebook or your computer or phone, whatever you're going to use from the very beginning. I guess the thing for me, I don't carry my notebook around with me, and maybe I should. So I don't always write things down. And I tell myself, I'll remember to write that down later.
No, I never have.
That's a damn lie.
That is.
It's a lie from the pit of hell.
It is a lie from the pit of hell.
So you won't remember to write it down later.
But coming from someone who designs her own stuff and someone who uses patterns, the notes are insanely important. Either way you work, the notes are insanely important. I can't tell you how many times. Now, I used to keep some notes on Ravelry, but I find that that's inconvenient because I didn't always have a device that I had Ravelry on to put the notes on, although those notes had saved my bacon a couple of times. So wherever you're comfortable making the notes, do that. Have you ever thought about just putting a little pad inside your work bag? Just so you have a place to jot something down?
You know what? So last night I needed to do some mathing, and I had a Post-it notepad, but I had no pen. I found one, of course, but just like,
it was that little bit of friction.
Yeah, you want to keep those two things together.
Sometimes that little bit of friction really is a sticking point. Yeah.
So, like I said, I have to work out a bit of a system. And you know what? Since I am working on one project at a time. What I think I want to do is pick one project bag. That'll be my project bag. And this is the
And
pocket where I'll
stock it.
have my
Yeah.
notebook. And here's where I'll keep that. And that might help. If everything is just kind of in the project bag already,
Mm-hmm.
I might get a little bit better about note taking. That's a thought. Now, you multi-project people, I don't know what y'all gonna do, but but yeah, I think I'm gonna have just like a designated project bag.
Well, speaking as a multi-project person, what I do is I make a kit for the project that stays in the project bag with the project.
Mm-hmm.
So if I need like a specialized tool or something, there's always a pen. There's always
Yeah.
a little bit of paper to write
Pen.
on. So I make that kit for each project that I'm working on, so that everything I need for that project, because sometimes I'm in the mood to just work on this thing and I'll pick it up, and if everything I need is not there, that's a sticking point, and it might not get worked on. Because I need the Geflugentugen, and I don't have my Geflugentugen. Whatever.
Did you learn to knit in St. Olaf?
Yes. Picture Sicily, 1928.
Oh, goodness gracious.
But that's one thing I've done to help with that. Also, I will make a little page in my bullet journal for each, a project page, a collection page in my bullet journal for each project. And as I, need to write things down about it, if I happen to have my phone next to me, I'll write down whatever note, but it'll get transferred to the bullet journal if I don't have it right there next to me, or it'll be on the piece of paper inside the project bag. And then I can, if it's something that I need to refer back to, sometimes it's just a little, I need to work these rows 7 times. So I'm just, doing hash marks. So that doesn't need to get transferred, and that doesn't need to stay in my bullet journal. But the important stuff I've learned to keep, because not having it has sometimes come back to bite me later on.
Yep.
So I would love to know what you guys do for documenting your makes, so that if you do need to rip back, or if you do need to return to it in 6 months or 8 months, how do you have like some sort of note-taking system that helps you get back into the flow of a project? Because it's for me, it's the only way I've been able to just keep going with everything. Oh, and if you know any crochet designers that design for themselves, or who talk about their design process, let Crystal know. They're here on YouTube, or if they're on Instagram or wherever.
Because I was thinking about, I started an online class, like recorded, so you watch the videos whenever, about crochet design. And I don't know, I have to finish watching, because I actually haven't finished watching it. But I don't know if they talk about note taking or documenting once you've designed things. And I feel like that is just very easily overlooked. Because if someone has some advice, I can sure use it. I'm not a naturally organized person. And this works against me in so many ways. It's really frustrating.
Oh, me neither.
Like when you can't find a tape measure. Just like, I just need to measure this one thing really quickly right now. And I don't know, because I had a tape measure in my bag, and my tape measure is broken. It died. So I need a new tape measure. So right now I don't have one that I like keep on me when I'm working. Where's the tape measure? I don't know. It just things like that. The time I waste just looking for things I've misplaced, or realizing I didn't write down something I needed to, what have you. I have so many, like, designing my own things happened very unexpectedly for me.
Yeah.
And so I had no system in place at all. And I'm having to like invent that system for all my planning, all my note taking, all my documenting on the fly. And because it's such a source of frustration for me, I don't dedicate the time to developing that process that I need to. I spend more time on the crocheting because that's the part that I get and that's the part that I like.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really honestly haven't been putting the time into it the way I need to. And again, it's going to be one of those things where I'm like going to come up with an idea and I'm going to try it and maybe it doesn't work or I need to tweak something. So it's not just going to be like, oh, a one and done kind of thing where I decide, okay, this is how I'm going to do my notes. I'm not looking forward to that.
Well, you know what? I don't think the notes need to be that formal a process, but maybe some just general categories.
I'm trying, I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to actually create like an order of operations for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like what is it that I do first? Because like I think I said previously in the video that I would have thought that swatching was my first step. It's not. Knowing what shape you're making. So having an idea of the shape and the pieces, the number of pieces you're going to need to make, that's really where you have to start. You have to really have a good description in your mind of what you're making because, you know, that'll tell you, do you want something that's an open weave or closed? Do you want something with texture? Do you want something, a stitch pattern where you can increase and decrease easily? You have to know those kinds of things ahead of time. And I need to figure that out. And then I can figure out what I need for each step of that process.
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
Yeah, but that's a good place to start right there. So what would be your way of documenting your shape selection? Would that just be a place to make a sketch? Or would you write a description in words?
Because I draw so poorly, I need the sketch and the words.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you draw the picture and you're like, what is that?
I've been there.
So sometimes I draw a sketch, but then I'll have like a little arrow and says, oh, this is going to be this, or this has to have this, or whatever.
So you know you need a place to make a sketch and you need a place to have a description that like next to it. All right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm saying seeing two facing pages in a book, the sketch and description over here, and then everything else over there.
Yeah, it's nothing happens like this. Don't do that. No. Like what? But yeah, it's workflow. At some point, if you decide that you're serious about something, you have to figure out your workflow, and that's where I am right now. Except I'm not giving it the time I need to.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I have to do it earlier in the day. Because when I get tired.
None of that's happening.
I'll make no sense.
Okay. And none of the documentation's happening. None of that's happening.
And my handwriting gets worse. My handwriting kind of gets worse as the day goes on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I get increasingly impatient. And yeah. So some things need to be done earlier in the day.
Correct.
I'm also bad about setting hours for myself to work. The actual crocheting is just one part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And for someone like me who has the goal of actually crocheting a whole wardrobe, I need to work these things out.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no way I can be this haphazard, dizzy mess if I want to crochet myself like a substantial wardrobe. So this is my long-term project that I'll be working on, and I will try to update you all as I'm working.
Oh, and we'd love to hear about what your workflow is like in terms of creating.
Yeah, if you have one,
project,
please share.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Help a sister out.
Oh, and I do want to just let you guys know, during my 2-hour pick-out process today, I had Downton Abbey, the new era on. If you want to see a stunning collection of crochet items, embroidered items, hand knits, check it out just for the fashion show. I saw some gorgeous pieces in there. Everything from garments to accessories. Anyway, I had to get my little plug in for Downton Abbey, the new era.
Sure, the crochet, the knitting, sure.
It was amazing. Just beautiful, beautiful
crochet,
pieces.
stay for the tea.
Indeed. Indeed. But I think that's it for me today. How about you? You got anything else?
No.
Thank you for spending this time with us. And we'll see you next week. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, let us know what we can do. I'd love to hear some tips and tricks. Anyway, have a great week, everybody. Bye bye.